I'm just here petting my bull. So today, you guys are in for a treat. We have 3 statistics experts here to teach you about 4 methods of data collection, which is a very, very exciting topic to learn about. So here it goes. So today in AP Stats, we will be learning 4 methods of data collection. So the first method we're gonna go over is an observational study. So the definition of an observational study would be observes individuals and measures variables of interest, but does not attempt to influence the responses. So that means like, the person trying to collect the data will just observe his surroundings or whatever he wants to measure, but he's not actually physically changing anything in the environment. So an example would be, if you go to the park and you want to count how many people wear hats to the park, you just sit there and you don't influence anything going on in the park, but you just write down data. Like you write down how many people are wearing hats, like whatever you want. It's a pretty easy study to do, in my opinion. It's a pretty simple one.
Our second method of data collection is an experiment, which deliberately imposes some treatment on individuals to measure their responses. This means that when you have like a group that you're studying, you're actively going to change a variable. You're going to make something different between one group, but you're going to keep one group the same. You're going to keep one group normal. That's going to be called your control. Then when you change something, that's your experimental group. What's changing is your independent variable. Your dependent variable is going to be what's the result. So essentially, an experiment happens when you're actively doing something as the researcher and then seeing what you actively do, its result. That is an experiment. An experiment has to deal with a placebo, which is when, let's say you're testing a drug and you have 2 groups. People who take the drug, and the second group is people who just take a pill that has no effects, like a sugar pill. So if the pill is to make people sleep longer, the experimental group is going to take the pill, which is the independent variable, and the dependent variable will be the hours that they sleep. The control group will take the placebo pill, and the dependent variable again is you're seeing how many hours they sleep, and then you compare those 2 groups. So you have the changed group and your normal group. That makes it an experiment.
So our next method of data collection would be a survey, which is a study that obtains data from a subset of a population in order to estimate population attributes. So one of the key things that you need in a survey is a representative sample of the population, because you're not going to give a survey to the whole population, you're going to give it to a certain sample. So let's say you have a population that varies in age groups. You don't want to just gather data from a specific age group, because then it's not going to represent the rest of the age groups. So you want an amount that's that's close to proportional to the amount that there is in the actual population for it to be accurate. An example of a survey would actually be one that we did in class, that we went around the school and asked students a couple of questions about their academics and just their personal lives. So that would be an example of an in-person survey. There's also telephone surveys and there's also online surveys. But the only problem with surveys is it's really hard to avoid bias, because some people are gonna lie, some people are just not gonna answer at all, and some people might just change what they think of something based on the person asking them. So that's a problem with the survey.
Our fourth method of data collection is simulation. The definition is it's a way to model random events that simulated outcomes closely match real-world outcomes. Researchers gain insight on the world. So basically, unlike the other methods, it's a way to predict it's used to like predict outcomes and like not necessarily to gather information. So like one example would be like, let's say you're trying to predict the winner of a World Series championship. So we can assume that the teams would have an equal chance of winning, obviously, because it's the 2 best teams and whatever. So like a model that can be used to predict the outcome would be, let's say, tossing a coin. So it's a 50-50 chance. You can use a coin to predict who's gonna win. Another example would be like the weather and like how they use mathematical models to predict it. So let's say these weather predictors, they use like past weather patterns and gather that information and they analyze it to create a mathematical model that they can then use to predict the weather in the future. Okay, so now I want to bring an expert on immersive experiences to give another explanation.
Hi, I'm a simulation expert, so I'm gonna just give you guys the rundown real quick. So simulations are to gain insight on how to predict outcomes. right? You're not gathering information about individual people or trying to find something out about a person or like a heuristic. You're really just trying to see if an event happens, what's most likely going to happen. So sometimes you have to run individuals through simulation so you can see how they're going to act in the real world. There are two easy examples for this. A lot of times before people go to war, like soldiers, they'll have like fake war zones. They'll play paintball, laser tag, things of that sort. And that's to see how people act in a situation similar to that of the real world, but not of the real world. Also, pilots fly artificial planes, right? They use video games kind of to closely mimic flying a plane while not actually flying one. The purpose of this is because you're trying to gain insight on the real world, but you're not actually going straight into the real world. You're doing something very close so you can see what that outcome might be. I got you, Ari.